Welcome to the Planner Pro Masterclass. My name is Guilherme and I help professionals to become successful project managers. I do that in several different ways, from providing training, providing extra content, mentoring, consulting, and so on. So today we are going to talk about the Planner Pro Masterclass. First, what's the goal of this class here? I want you to learn to be able to confident plan and execute and manage projects. Of course, using the planning pro method. So I want you to make sure that you can create a project plan. You can align this with your team to make sure that you can deliver successful projects there. And that's of course why there is the planner pro method that will help you with that. Who is this training for here? It's for project planners, aspiring project managers, project coordinators, assistant project managers, associated project managers, anyone that wants to learn how to plan and execute successful projects there so you can benefit for that. And what we are going to discuss in the class here in this master class, we are going to talk about first why planning is so important in projects, what are common mistakes that people make in plannings, and of course that you should avoid. Just avoiding by those mistakes here, you're going to be way ahead of a lot of people, including senior project managers there. Mistakes, common areas of mistakes that people do that, and of course I'm going to talk a bit on the efficient, on effective and efficient there, and I'm going to talk about more the plan and pro method there. Before going there, let me first quickly showcase to you few projects that I've worked over the years there. So why I'm showcasing that to you first, so to you to understand that everything I'm mentioning here is based on my 15 years of experience working with several different projects with different countries in different industries though. So here you can see in the screen the first project I started. I started there with no experience, no training, no planning experience, no MS project planning, and I end up with a quite big project there, 10 different construction sites plus 500 equipments. There are a lot of different materials that I had to handle. Again, to give you an idea how I started, and I started with nothing and already in a very complex environment there. So through the years, I went to different type of projects from global supply chain development there, working with manufacturing sites across the world, product development, automotive, healthcare, services for healthcare development there, and also product developed in the semiconductor industry. And again, why I'm showing you that, just to give you an idea in the range of projects I've been working on those past 15 years. So a lot of times I'm going to mention cases during this class here. And why? Because I want you to really lend the information there. So of course I can explain, but the best way to do that and explaining to you a real case there. So every time I'm talking about those things, keep in mind that my goal is to make sure that you are learning more in this process here. So, short introduction about myself. First, I'm Brazilian. I'm born in the south of Brazil, in a small city there. My first contact with project management was in 2006. Was horrible. I was a study engineer. We had a class about project management. I basically hated. Why? Because the professor thought that would be a good idea to start reading the PMBOK. If you don't know, the PMBOK stands for the Project Management Body of Knowledge. I hated. I read 2 pages and I thought that everything there was crap, a pile of useless paper. Then I would never see that in my life again. Of course, what happened and what changed and how I ended up here. Couple of years later, I got an internship opportunity in the project management department of Toshiba South America, and there I start to see the value of project management. You start to understand the profession, and of course, I start to fall in love with that and start to dream to be a project manager at some day myself. Later on, I graduated. I was hired to be a planning and control engineer. I've already mentioned the project. I've showcased to you some pictures of the project. There, again, I did not have experience. I did not have, except for my internships, I did not have any knowledge or on planning MS project or project management. So I remember in the first days I was struggling. Okay, I was feeling anxious because I did not know what to do. I did not know how to handle MS project. I did not know how to create a project plan. And all those things, of course, they were challenging. Fast forward a bit, I start to perform. After 1 year, I was performing much well at the point that even I was recognized for the department manager. Say, okay, good job. You were able to handle the challenge that you had, even with those big projects. So I was quite happy. Another year or something later, I ended up being promoted for a project manager position. I was the youngest project manager in the team. When I was promoted to be a project manager there, I was 25 years old. I started with the project that you can see here, quite big project. It was expansion for a mining company. What you see here in the middle of the Amazon forest, a lot of challenge that I had there. So I had a challenge, of course. I moved for a new position. I had to learn how to be a project manager because it's different from planning and controlling. I had to step up for a more leadership position. Faced a lot of different challenges from I remembered from going to still review board meetings with directors and managers in the company. They would talk about accounts receivable about my project. I did not had a clue on that one, so it was also quite challenging on looking into that aspect. But in the end, I decided to continue to learn, continue to develop myself. So I started to perform well. I was recognized as one of top performer of the teams, even though I was quite young. I was the youngest project manager in the team. I had a very good performance, but I always had in my mind this doubt if I could pursue an international career, if I would be able to do that. Well, what happened is a few years later, my wife at the time, and now she's my girlfriend at the time, and now she's my wife. Now we have two kids. Then what happened is she got a job in the U.S., so I had to take a decision, or I would take a leap of faith and try to pursue an international career, or I would have to stay where I was. Nothing wrong with that, but was maybe not fully happy because I always had this in my mind. What about an international career? And of course, likely I would have lost my girlfriend then. So what happened in 2006? I decided to move to the US. There again, I started facing a lot of challenges. I did not even know how to create a CV. I did not know how to prepare for an interviews. So it was a challenging period. I had to step up my skills again to make sure because to work in the US, although I work there as a freelancer, also if I want to stay, I would have to get a sponsorship from a company which if I could not make my profile to stand out, that would not work. So fast forward a bit, I got also a scholarship for an MBA in the Netherlands. So I moved to the Netherlands for an MBA, and later on I was hired to be a sourcing program manager at Sensata Technologies. There I was in a completely new industry, no product knowledge there, no industry knowledge. Of course, I had some experience there already, I remember that situation in my second day when we start talk about planning, how we are going to execute the project. Up here, he starts talk about a lot of jargon, the technical jargon, the industry, the automotive industry, like APQP, capability, numbers from manufacturing. And I think we had 1 or 2 hours meeting. And by the end of that, I was fully scared because I was like, I don't know anything what this guy is talking about. And of course, again, I was anxious. At some point, I was doubting myself if I would be able to continue there. Because in the end, if I was not able to perform, the company would not renew my contract. And then my international career would be over because, again, I needed a sponsorship there for my visa. So I decided that I would not allow this to stop me. And I put myself to study, to learn, to look for my experience, to look for the different peers, start to develop myself and say, okay, what do I have here? How I can organize this in a way that makes sense to make sure that I can execute projects in any type of industry. So again, I was able to succeed, got another opportunity to go for a senior project manager position to develop products again in the automotive business. Later on, I moved to be a consultant where I'm executing projects in the semiconductor industries. I also provide training for the entire Benelux and Nordic regions. At this point, that only in the past 2 years, I've trained more than 120 people, 120 consultants there. And also, I do different types of consulting there. In this entire journey, what I've learned is that I like to work with people. I like to help people. Even in my while I was hired to be engineer, a planning control engineer there, I was taking care of the interns there when I was promoted to be a project manager. I had juniors reporting to me, which also helped me to develop my skills, but also helped me to develop them. And this is so I have been doing that. And at some point, I say, okay, it makes sense also to create my programs, my training. I like to do this. I love talking about project management, and I think I have a framework that's quite interesting there that can help a lot of people, and that's basically how I end up here. So, long story short, that's why I'm here today, because I do like what I do and I do like to add value for you as a professional there, for you and for your company to make sure that you can get your results there. But enough about me, let's talk on planning then. So to talk on planning, of course, I'm going to look it back for the PMBOK. PMBOK stands for Project Management Book of Knowledge. That's the standard from the Project Management Institute. Project Management Institute is the biggest project management organization around the world. And they have a project management standard there that can be and should be used as a reference for company and for people to develop project theirs. And they have their principles there, which I'm not going to mention here in a lot of details. But why I'm mentioning the PMBOK there? For a very important reason, PMBOK, they have what they call the project performance domains here. What's a project performance domain? It's areas with related activities that you need to execute to make sure that you can effectively deliver project outcomes. What do I mean by project outcomes? The value. Your goal as a project manager, as a project planner, is to deliver value. So you need to make sure that you work on this project performance domains to make sure you are able to deliver value there. And of course, one of those project performance domains there is planning. Planning is important for all type of projects. If you are doing waterfall, if you are doing agile, if you are doing scrum, if you are doing kanban, if you are doing a hybrid approach, I don't care. Planning is always important. What will change from project to project is how we are going to approach the planning, what level of detail that you go down into a planning phase there. Of course, if you are doing Scrum, the level of planning that you are going to do for planning a sprint is different than, for example, if you are planning a bridge there. But what's very important, planning is always there. So to start talking more about planning, I have a question for you. Is this a good plan there or not? This is one of the plans for one of the projects I've worked in the past there. So take a moment and think, is it a good planning or not? Just based on what you see here. Well, if you made a guess there, I don't know, of course, I have no means to understand which what was your guess there, but there's something very important that you need to understand. Your schedule is not your plan. So what you see here is not your project plan. It might be part of it, sure, but it's not your project plan. And to explain that, I need to talk about three generals there and explain to you a bit their codes, and I'm going to make a case also to tell you a real case for you to understand that. First, why I'm talking about generals? Because Eisenhower and Helmut, they were very famous generals at their time there, and see what they talk about planning. One is saying that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. And the other one is saying no plan survives contact with the enemy. What does it mean? Well, first, very clear that you might have related those quotes. If you have a plan like that, depending, so the this plan here, this paper that you get here, is less important than the process that you follow to create this plan. What do I mean by that? Well, if you create the plan by yourself and think about you have a project plan, has very low value from what you're doing. So how people do that often, and I have to confess I also did that in the early stage of my career. You go and start to work, for example, in a tool like MS Project. You create a plan like that, and you say, okay, now I have a project plan, and now what? In my case, what I did, I say I'm going to share with my team, but they say, but my team, they do not have MS Project. So I save a PDF and I put it in a folder and I told people, the project plan is there, you can check it. What's the chance do you think that someone went in that folder to open the project plan and to try to understand it? If you are not guessing, I can tell you it's zero chance that someone did that. And why I'm telling you that? So the process that I create while I created this plan was kind of useless because I did not use the plan to help to bring alignment to the team, to help to understand goals, to help to understand the steps that you need to take. Just creating a file like that and put store somewhere, it's almost useless. So this is quite important. Another very important point that you should understand in those codes. I can guarantee to you, whatever you do in those plans, it's going to change. So that's why they are saying no plan survives the contact with the enemy. Whatever you do here, you already need to, by default, 99% chance that you're going to need to change something there. But if you did that by yourself and only you change it, the value that you're going to get there is very low. So that's also why to bring another quote from the General Patton here, that a violently executed plan is better than the perfect plan that's never executed. Meaning that you keep continue work on this to try to make it perfect, but it's much better that you have something that's aligned with your team and then your team execute than have something ideal on paper but in practice does not work. Because what you want, the best managers or the project managers, they are going to build the context to your team to have alignment to your team for the execution. And that's what you want to do it. And that's what I'm saying. This is not your project plan. And to make this more, to land it very well, let me tell you a story that happened a few years ago. I was handling a big program there in a company. What happened there that the company, the programs were going, the pipeline was great, and then we decided to hire someone, a junior project manager, to help me with those programs there. After this guy was on board for around 6 months in the company, I decided to give him a chance to learn a bit more on project management and exercise his skills and so on. And I asked him to take the smallest of the new project that we got that was part of the program there. And I asked him, okay, go and create a project plan. A couple of days later, he come and say, project plan is ready. I say, really? And he told me, yes. I say, okay, let's sit and review this together. Then we go for a meeting room, and I ask him, okay, he had, for example, task number A after the task, let's say task number B after task number A. Then I ask him, why did you do this connection like that? And why I was asking that? Because I was trying to understand what was his way of thinking to connect tasks and to end up bringing up to understand if he could map the critical path of the project. His answer was, I copied this from the previous timeline. So if it's wrong here, it's wrong in the other one. My answer for him was, but task number 8 does not exist in the other project, only in that one. And he looked at me and he was quiet. So, okay, let's move forward. Then I looked to him and asked, okay, what did you consider here? We had to assemble prototypes in a manufacturing line here. What did you consider here to have this duration here of 1 week to assemble prototypes? How many pieces are you considering here? And he answered, I copy from the other timeline. If it's wrong here, it's also wrong there. And I answered to him, well, the other project there has different sample requirements. Here the sample requirements are higher. So you cannot copy the same duration. Again, he was quiet. What I was trying to understand there, what was his way of thinking to estimate those tasks there? This discussion went on for a couple of more questions. At some point I say, let's stop here. Listen. First, the goal that you have with a plan is you are going to understand your project, that you're going to understand your scope, your requirements, and what needs to be done. You are going to understand the assumptions that you are making here. Because in the end, if you cannot explain the plan to me, how you're going to explain this to the team? Because you need to talk with the team, you need to explain to the team, you need to bring feedback, get feedback from the team to bring alignment. And I told him something even more, how you're going to explain that to the customer. Because what's going to happen is, if you go to present to the customer will, and depending if you are in a time pressure, the customer say, why does it take that long? And if you don't even know why it's 1 week, you cannot even explain. What you're going to say, I copy for something else and I did not even put a thought on that. So having some reference is nice, but keep always in mind that you need to understand what's there. So that's what's the planning that's indispensable there is understanding the requirements, assumptions, constraints, dependencies, discussing that with your team, finding risks. That's what you want. This having this, it's nice, but this is not your project plan. Might be, of course, part of that to guide you in the execution. Yes, perfect, but never uh, mistake again anymore this as your project plan. Next mistake that people make there, and it's lack of clear objectives and goals. To tell you that, I need to mention that this data here comes from the Project Management Institute. They do research with project managers all over the world. Inadequate vision or project goal is among of the top reasons why project failure. Why? Because if you don't know where you're going, how you're going to get there? Let's assume that you want to travel and say, to where you want to travel? I don't know. So whatever you get there, it's fine. So, and to explain to you that, let me put also another case that also happened a couple of years ago. This was an aerospace in Belgium there, multi-billion-dollar company there. So they had and they have a site there where they make maintenance in the airplane engine here, and their project was to expand this because they were allowed to do maintenance, for example, to the engine number A, and they also want to make sure that they are capable of doing that on the engine number B. The project involves so making sure that you have people trained, have the right tooling, the knowledge, authorities approval, and everything like that. What happened? The company was struggling with the project there, and then they called me, say, we have a problem here. It was a junior project manager. The manager of there also told me we have very low project management maturity in the department there, but I need your help here to get some guidance in what to do. And during those discussions, I was trying to guide the junior project manager there with simple stuff like mapping the scope. They did not have a WBS, a work breakdown structure. They did not understand what needs to be done, what's part of the scope, what's not, what's an interface with another project, what's not. And one of the discussions, something pop up in that he was saying that they need to validate the engine B for maintenance here. But then I asked him, okay, what's your goal here? Is to make sure that they can work in maintenance on engine A or B? Because then you have one production line, or either we work on one, or either we work on the second one, or your goal is to have maintenance in engine A and then engine B in parallel. Those are quite, it sounds very subtle, but those are quite different type of projects. Space that you needed, equipment that you needed, people that you needed, it's quite different there. And he did not know what was the goal. He was saying, no, it's only to validate the number B. I say, okay, it's A or B for capacitor, or A and B? This is a very important constraint, and it was one of the top things that you need to understand at your goal. The problem is, if he did not have this clear, likely a lot of the managers also did not have this clear. So maybe he delivered the project A or B, and people say, but that's not what I want. So they consider the project as a failure. Maybe they want A and B, and but if he is working on A or B, he's just order half of the tools that he needed. All those kinds of constraints, and that end up delaying the project in 1 year here, just because of not just because of that, but this goal here say, if you do not know that you need to do scenario number 1 or scenario number 2, how you are going to know that you complete the project? You're just working, doing work. So he was under a lot of pressure. You're taking a lot of heat, a lot of pressure, and with all of that, you don't even know if you're going to be able to deliver the project. So it's insane. There's a lot of companies, big companies, small companies, that they start projects without what's clear goals here. So keep that in mind. This is one of the top mistakes that happen all over the world. Be careful with that. And another mistake I'm going to tell you, it's ignoring the critical path. First, let me give you a short explanation what's a critical path if you don't know it. Well, in every project you have a chain of tasks. They should be connected in a logical sequence here. Meaning, for example, task number B happens after task number A, and then you end up having a chain of tasks like that. Like think about if you want to build a house, you need to have the foundation, then you need to build infrastructure, and later on you need to have a roof. That's a chain of tasks that you have there. And what's the critical path? The critical path is the longest chain of tasks that you can have in a project. That's what you see in the picture here. The red one, that's the longest chain of tasks that you can have there. And you can have several different chains of tasks depending on the project. But what's the difference with the critical path? The critical path is the longest one. So the critical path will determine the duration of the project. Meaning if you have a project with a duration of 200 days and the critical path is delayed 1 day, your project will take 201 days there. Why this is important? Because that will help you to define priorities with your team, to make sure that you clearly understand how you need to execute the project, what are the important steps that are non-negotiable there for your project there. And why this is a very important to ignore. So let me bring a case here. This is one of my projects that I've worked still in Brazil, so a long time ago already. This project was for a company. The company transferred the project to me for our organization internally. And the feedback I got from the previous project manager and from the site manager, it was everything was okay, project was on time, and everything should be good, under control at least. One of the things I did, I decided to visit the site because, and that's something I do recommend for you. Every type of project that you're working, if you have a manufacturing site, if you have a construction, or any type of work that you can do, make sure you visit there as often as possible because then you understand the work being done there and also the challenge there. But anyway, coming back to the case. And when I visited the project, that there were basically two areas. One outside area that you can see in the picture here, and one inside area. That the inside area was to build, to create this building here, because it would install a lot of different panels for automation and so on inside of. And the outside area would look with something like that. When I visited the site, I noticed that the building that was the critical path. Why? Because the building would take longer to make sure everything is ready, to make sure that we could put in panels inside it, to make sure we could make complete assembly, do commissioning, and startup of the plant. So everything, this was the critical path here. And when I asked the site manager why this is delay and why he was not reporting anything, first he mentioned that the building was delayed because of in the outside area here, like those concrete structures that you see here in the image here, they also were delayed. First thing I told him, first, those are not related at all. You could have worked in the building, and you should have been working in the building separate from what's going on in the outside area. They're not even, they were apart from, I don't know, 40, 50 meters apart. So there's no reason why you cannot work on them in parallel. And then, of course, he tried to give me a bad excuse and so on. But long story short, first, he did not understand what's the critical path. Well, if he was delaying the building, he would impact the entire project there. And he was saying, if we get the concrete structure, I'll push to get these on time. This is not even the critical path. So if you have, okay, everything here in the outside area is ready, the building is delayed, so the project is delayed. Other very important thing. So he was trying to justify non-related tasks, but he did not understand the importance of that one because he thought, okay, some delay here. Once we got this part, we can try to manage. But he did not understand that by delaying even few days the critical path, he was creating a big problem for the project because at the time the delay, I took over the project. The delay was already there for I don't know for weeks. Then we tried to implement with extra work, working on the Saturdays and so on. In the end, we were not able to recover all the delay, so the project was delayed, of course. The customer was unhappy. There was a very lot of problems. But one of the things that happened also with the site manager, I can tell you, one of the things that I requested when I went back to the company, say I need a new site manager. Not because of the delay, but I need a site manager because I need to trust the information that I get. This person here should be my eyes in the field. If this person is lying to me, I cannot trust what, so I don't have lies in the field, so I don't have a reason to have a site manager there. So, long story short, may, by not understanding the critical path and his importance here, the critical path importance, he simply delayed the project and created a lot of problems. In the end, it was also not a nice situation for him and so on. But keep that in mind. If you do not understand what's a critical path here, you are in trouble. And of course, the critical path from your project can change. You can have more than one sometimes, but you always need to understand that. And that's also the importance that you track what you're doing in your plan there. Otherwise, you end up in all kinds of trouble there. So here are just few examples, some mistakes that I want you all to avoid. But in general, what you're going to see, there are different areas that those mistakes can come from. One is general lacking of planning knowledge. What do I mean? Oh, if you do not know how to define a project, how to define a goal, how to define scope, how to create a timeline, identify critical path, all those basics, then basically you're done. Like in the case of the project, the site manager, he did not know what the critical path is. So how he's prioritizing stuff he's doing. So from this one, he is done. And of course, because you make a mistake in this fundamental part here, the other parts will just keep going wrong. So this goes like in a negative spiral there, and you only have trouble. But if you understand how to create a project, what you need there, then you need your leadership and communication skills. Because your goal is, that's the first mistake that I mentioned, it's not to create a timeline that nobody knows it. You need to co-create the plan with your team. You need to align this plan with your stakeholders to be able to manage the expectations. You need to have a clear communication with your team about what's the critical path, what's the priority, what are the things that you need to adapt there. Then you need to be able to manage the risk, identify the risks, create different scenarios, simulate different scenarios, understand if there's more than one critical path or there's several other chains that you need to manage there. And of course, you need to be able to understand how to manage, how to have key performance indicators, how you're going to communicate changes, how you're going to manage changes, and so on. But these go here, one retrofits the other. Meaning, if you do not have the planning knowledge, you are going to suck with the leadership and communication, which is going to suck with risk management, which you are going to have problems with management, and this keep going. If you solve one of those parts, let's say you have this knowledge already good, then you need to work in the other three. But here's the challenge that I see from a lot of people. A lot of people, they focus on tools. For example, say, I want to learn Primavera, I want to learn MS Project, I want to learn Smartsheet. But the tools, they are there to help you. If you do not have this clear foundation right, only knowing the tool will not help you. What do I mean by that? So let me bring another concept here. The difference between effective and efficient there. Effective is basically make sure that you're doing the right things. So let's put in the example of the site manager here. What's being effective? Make sure that the house or the building was prioritized during execution there because it was the critical path. And what's efficiency there? Well, efficiency would be to have to do things in the right way, meaning avoiding rework or to do things in a faster way. What's the problem if you learn a software? A software will help you to be efficiency. It will help you to be more efficient. Which in the end you want to be both. You want to be effective and efficient. But first you need to learn how to be effective. Because if you say, I know how to use a software, but you do not have the basics. And I'm going to tell you a story that if you follow me on my Instagram, I shared also recently in my stories there. The beginning of my career, where I was growing there, one of the projects I was working, it was a big project. The company hired a planning technician there to be allocated on site to plan the day-to-day from the site that was connected with my master plan, and this person would report to me there. So in the first week that we got this planner for this project, And I asked him, okay, take a look in the timeline and learn something. He was an expert on MS projects, so he did a lot of stuff in the timeline. He create overviews, he put KPIs, added columns here, save a baseline, and blah 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 blah. And then he come and look the work that I did. And with 30 seconds looking into the timeline, I told you this is wrong. I told him this is wrong. And do you know what happened there? And he tried to argue, no, no, I improved it here, I improved it that. Because he was, of course, the Microsoft project expert there. His knowledge, by the way, at the time was much better than mine. Much better. uh, and I told him, but you missed something here. You just changed the project duration from 15 months, which we have a contract to execute, to 30 months. And then he tried to argue, oh, but maybe we should increase the timeline. I said, here, listen, we started this project like 1 month ago. If we delay, there's a penalty in contract from that. So if we delay, if we from 50 months we go to the 30 months, we are going to pay the maximum penalty. That means the company will likely here lose at the current of the time $2 or $3 million. The customer will be unhappy. All the management are going to be unhappy. Can you explain to me why the duration moved from 15 to 30 months? And he could not even explain the critical path there. So I said, do you want to try to explain that to management, or do you want to come back to the previous timeline? And of course, he come back for the other one. That might not be fancy the way with a lot of things that you can do in MS Project, but it was effective. He created something that might look more efficient, but it was not effective. He missed the value of the project there. So to be able to really learn a tool and to get value from that, you first need to learn how to need to be effective. And this is the foundation that you need. So those four different areas you need to learn how to run those things here. And that's exactly for that I create the Planner Pro method. Because with all my experience with the mistakes I've seen, with the mistakes that I've seen from other people, with all the challenges I face in more than 15 years there, I say, I think there's a better way to teach and to execute these projects. So I created the Planner Pro method, which I break down in four pillars here. The project blueprint, alignment for success, anticipation mastery, and momentum emotion. Of course, I try to find some fancy names there. But what do I mean by each of those things? Well, in the what's your project goal? You need to understand how to set a project goal, what's value in your project, and you need to have a goal in a SMART model, and maybe you need to understand what's a OKR, objective and key result, to understand how you can make this valuable for your plan. How to break down your plan in key items that you can achieve success there. So that's a first step that you need to do it. The second one, you need to understand how you organize your project. So it's important that you understand the 5S philosophy here. 5S, it's a philosophy. Yeah, it's a philosophy that comes from Lean, from the Toyota production system there, that helps you to organize stuff. Not only the physical way, like your table, the way it looks like that, but you can look for your SharePoint, how to organize this in your SharePoint to make yourself more efficient and also to make your team more efficient. You need to understand how you are going to map requirements, assumptions, constraints, external dependencies, how to create a WBS, how to create a schedule. I mentioned a few things here already in the class. Predecessor, successors, task estimation, resource utilization, critical path, compression techniques, how you're going to divide your project in phase, how you establish milestones, how you break down this plan here, what's the cost that you can have there. All those are the very fundamental things. That's why I call the blueprint, because if you do not know this part here, you cannot execute the rest. Then you need to make sure that you are aligned for success, that you are working with your team with the right culture, right values, you have feedback, that you have a prioritization model. In this case, I have my own model that's called the Compass model there. You need to understand communication difference, how you're going to communicate. Communication is always a challenging project. If you have a multicultural environment, an international environment where people speak several different languages, communication here will be key. You need to understand how to handle conflict. And again, organization, how you and your team will get organized to achieve the project goal. And of course, how to manage stakeholder expectations, what and how to report, frequency of reporting, and so on. Then, of course, you need to understand risk management. What's a risk? Types of response, how to identify and manage risks. Scenarios, what are the different critical path scenarios? Do you have more than one critical path? Do you have one critical path and one thing that can turn into a critical path? How does it affect your business case scenarios? You need to be able to come up with scenarios to make sure that you can manage your project in an effective way, that you have good key performance indicators, S-curve. S-curve is what saved me in my first project that I mentioned to you. I put the plan in a SharePoint. It was an S-curve. That's a tool that's quite heavily used in construction process. That was what saved me during the project execution there. Otherwise, the project would be out of my control there. You need to understand what's earned value management, how to manage change, how you're going to assess those changes, what's scope creep, what's gold plating, and you're going to need to run those fundamentals things here. So this is the Planner Pro method. Of course, here I'm giving a very brief overview because to go for everything here, we will need a lot of different sessions because I need to teach you every piece and how to implement that. But that's exactly why I create the Planning Pro training to teach you how to implement those things in practice. So what's the Planning Pro deliverables there? So you have a training with the 4 modules that I just showed you, and you have deliverables like a Planner Pro assessment. If you want to start, you start the training with an assessment to understand where you are there. With this assessment, you start to understand what are your gaps. Let me show you how this assessment look like. So this is how you're going to see your assessment there. You have a bunch of questions in those different dimensions, and in the end, you get a graph to see where you are. Of course, this here is a just random number, so you have an idea, but this is the first step that you're going to do. Then you have a project scan. That's a tool to help you to map. Remember, I mentioned to you that you need to know how to map your scope, your requirements, constraints, and everything else. I create a checklist for you to map in the entire company. That's what you see here. There's a 2-page with a lot of different items that you need to check into your project to make sure that you can perform. Then, of course, I create also a planning checklist because if you're planning, you need to know what you're doing. Like you can plan the consistency. There's a bunch of questions, and there's a bunch of questions here if you're using MS Project. And why there's a bunch of questions about MS Project, although the Planner Pro method is a general one, because I also added as a bonus, because I want to make you more efficient, and I know a lot of people want that, I add you as a bonus of the Planner Pro method, a training on MS Project. And all those things are on the training of MS Project, like you're going to see something like that. The classes are already there. You just act, I show you features, I show cases like this case of a building here. So you have a big case that you build your own plan with different challenges on budget, on timeline, and we solve this together. Of course, you can use the tools here to help you in the executing that one. And then you have classes. Okay, how I'm going to come up with some TMS project, how I make the connections, how I bring the different views, what are the different features that are going to have. But this is only a bonus for the Planner Pro for people that want to be more efficient, in this case, using MS Project. But what if I use Smartsheet? Planner Pro works for you. You just don't need to use you don't need to watch the MS Project part, because this is the core that you need. This is learning to be effective here. And I added, of course, project report template, so you understand how you need to report for a management, project charter to understand a project. All those things I created for you, and with an extra bonus for the training that I'm going to support you via WhatsApp for 6 months. If you have questions, what you're doing, what the challenge that you are facing during implementation, I can help you and I can advise you. This is kind of a consulting that you get there. But here you're going to have something much more special, because although this is a lot of things, they're already recorded and it's online training, I'm completely updating that one. So if you enroll right now, you can enjoy also the live sessions, meaning that we are going to have those trainings via Zoom. Here you have even the dates, and of course, if you enroll in the program, you are going to get the details of the dates, the links for the Zoom, and everything else. We are going to meet twice a week for the next weeks to make sure that you get everything there. So you have the chance to go for a live session via Zoom to get the training live there. All the sessions will be recorded. What if I miss everything? You can watch and rewatch again how many times that you need there. So we are going to get access to that, and I'm going to give you access to all future updates that I'm going to make. Meaning, what if in the future I decide to improve that again? I decide to make this even better. You are going to get all the other updates free of charge. Because one of the side effects that I want for you is to make sure that you stop to be overwhelming, to feel this anxiety. I know how do you feel. I've been there. I want you to be sure that you are calm, that you are focused to execute what you need to do, that you get the recognition and respect with your manager, with your peers. Make sure that you get better project outcomes, that you are able to deliver more value, which is going to enable you to take bigger projects, more complex projects, and of course, will open your doors for your career, for promotions, for better salaries, and so on. I know that might sound strange, but I need to tell you also that here there's an opportunity cost. What if you don't join on this one? Well, you can keep yourself trying the mistakes by yourself. Of course, something I can tell you, you are not going to find this method anywhere because I created. This is my own method. And project management is expected to grow. We expect to reach, if nothing is done, and what I'm doing here, I'm hoping to contribute to reduce the talent gap. Project management will continue to grow because projects they are going to drive energy matrix changes, product development, service development, housing crisis, and everything that we need to build there. So we expect that we are going to have a gap of around 25 million project management professionals up to 2030 if nothing is done. These are the salaries, so you just have as a reference there. This reference comes from the Project Management Institute Salary Survey 2023. This is in the UK. This is in the US. Those are just two reference for the two different countries there. So if you miss the opportunity and you keep struggling, you might lose this wave with a lot of opportunities there. And of course, I'm not sure how much you are making, but those salaries they don't look bad. But I also know that you might be wondering, okay, how much this is going to cost? Because you're talking about live sessions, you talk about recording, you're talking about templates, you're talking about MS Project training there. What I can guarantee to you, it's not going to be as expensive that you could look for. For example, this is a project management training that I find here in the Netherlands, almost 1,000 euros just for the training. If you look for only an MS project training, you're going to find stuff 300 euros, $200, 1,000 euros only for MS project training. With the pity that here, if you only learn MS project, you're only learning to be efficient. You're not going to be able to execute your project plan properly because you need to be effective there. So if I look for the pricing, but I really, my goal is to add value for people, then I'm trying to make something as reasonable as possible. So if I would say I'm going to charge the Planner Pro 300 euros, that would be reasonable. Well, if you doubted me, just put on Google right now project management training, and you're going to see those values around Europe, around the US. If you just say 300 euros for just the planning, well, the other training was 1,000 euros, but okay, I'm going to say 300 euros. The project management training itself, easily you're going to find 600 euros. The consulting part that I'm offering, you're not going to find this anywhere because most people sell you the training and they don't care if you are executing it or not. Here I'm going to get you consulting to make sure that you can execute that. If you think about 6 months, 26 weeks, 10 euros per week, I doubt that you can hire a consultant for 10 euros per week. But if you want, be my guest. But anyway, you are going to end up in around 260 euros. So the total price of this training easily could be 660 euros. But I'm making this as easy as possible for people. and I want to make sure that I can add value for you. I can get you on board as fast as possible so we can enroll together and I can help you to grow into your career. I'm going to make this 79 and 9 euros with still the possibility to pay this in 2 installments with a 15 days unconditional guarantee there to make sure that you also feel comfortable in what you're doing, because I really want to add value for you. So if you think you're going to get all that, and if you divide by the number of weeks, that would mean just the free consulting that you're going to get there is costing 3 euros per week. And again, I don't know where you are, but I can tell you with 3 euros per week, you might be able to buy 2 Coca-Colas in a week. Depend if where you buy. Of course, if you go to the supermarket, if with 3 euros you might be able to buy a 2 liter Coca-Cola, 2 liter Coca-Cola maybe. But that's what I'm offering. I'm offering something that's completely unique for you. That's the Planner Pro method. I'm offering you the support that you need in the upcoming months. I'm offering you the two orgs because people say are either you get live or either you get a recorded. Here you're going to get both. So you can watch live, you can engage, you can ask your questions, you can watch it and rewatch it as many times as you want. And I'm offering you the consulting support there. So basically right now you have three options. You can decide, okay, I don't know, I don't believe you. That's a reason. You can say, I'm going to try to figure out by myself. You can try to do a reverse engineering my method here to see if you can work that. That's fine. Be my guest. That will only take longer to build something like that, but people decide what they want. Or you can enroll right now. It's the fastest and easiest way. And make sure, of course, you do that on time. Because if you're watching this video in end of April, then you're not going to have the chance to watch the live class anymore. So this is time to take the initiative to make sure that you can join the live class plus the recording. So I'm hoping that I'm going to see you in the Planner Pro training classes there. I wish you good luck with your career, and I hope I'm going to see you soon. Thank you. Bye.